Ion had always lived in a quiet mountain town where life moved slowly. People woke up early, shops opened at the same time every day, and the same friendly voices filled the streets. For years, nothing unusual ever happened there. The most exciting thing the town usually saw was sudden rain or a celebration at the local market. But during the last few weeks, something strange had been happening. The sky behaved in ways no one could understand. At night, soft lines of light moved across the sky like silent waves. The weather would change without warning, clear blue skies suddenly turning cloudy, and then sunshine returning just minutes later. Ion wasn't the type to imagine wild things, but even he felt that something unusual was happening. Still, he kept these thoughts to himself because he didn't want people to laugh or worry. One evening, the town experienced a long power outage. It wasn't the first one that month, but this time something felt different. The wind was strangely warm. The air carried a soft buzzing sound, and the sky looked heavier than usual. Ion stepped outside to get some fresh air, since the inside of his house felt too quiet without electricity. As he looked toward the mountains, a sudden flash of silver tore through the dark sky. It was not lightning. It was not a shooting star. It was something moving fast, almost gliding. And then it disappeared behind the hills. Ayan blinked several times, wondering if his tired eyes had fooled him. But the afterimage of that silver streak stayed in his mind. Instead of fear, he felt a pull of curiosity, something he had not felt in years. He grabbed a small flashlight and began walking toward the hill. The path was uneven, filled with stones and old tree roots, but the desire to know what he had seen pushed him forward. The closer he got, the quieter everything became. Even the crickets had stopped singing. The wind was barely moving, and the trees stood still like they were listening. Ion felt a slight shiver run down his spine, but he kept going. When he reached the top of the small hill, he expected to see fire, smoke, or broken metal. Instead, there was nothing but a soft mist rising from the ground. He stepped slowly, shining his flashlight in every direction. That's when he heard something. A soft, calm breathing, almost like someone struggling to adjust to the air. Ion turned, and what he saw froze him in place. A young woman stood a few steps away, her back to him. She was alone, surrounded by a faint mist that moved like it was alive. Her hair was long, falling gently over her shoulders, and her clothes were unlike anything Ion had ever seen. They weren't torn or dirty, but they looked different from any fabric he knew moved. Almost shining under the moonlight, Ion opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, the woman turned slowly toward him. Her face was soft and calm, and she seemed perfectly human at first glance. But her eyes, those were different. They held patterns, tiny moving shapes like distant star reflections. They weren't frightening, just unusual. Beautiful in a way he didn't have words for. She looked at him without fear, as if she already knew he was there. Ion felt his heartbeat quicken, but he forced himself to stay calm. He didn't want to scare her. Are you all right?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman blinked slowly, then nodded. Her expression was peaceful but also confused, like she was trying to make sense of the world around her. She opened her mouth as if to speak, and then paused, searching for the right words. "My name." She began softly, her voice sounding gentle and smooth as Lyra. Ion stepped a little closer. "Lyra? Are you from around here? Did something happen to you?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him carefully. "I am a traveler," she said after a small pause. "I came from very far. Far beyond what you can walk or see." Ion didn't understand her meaning, but he sensed she wasn't lying. At the same time, she wasn't telling him everything. Her way of speaking felt careful, like she was trying to hide something without being unkind. "Did you fall from that light?" he asked slowly, pointing toward the sky. Lyra looked up for a moment, then back at him with a soft expression. "I arrived through light, yes," she replied, "but I cannot explain it fully." Her answer was strange, but something in her eyes made Ion believe she was not dangerous. There was no fear, no anger, no panic, only confusion and quiet strength. She took a deep breath, as if adjusting to the air again, and placed her hand on a nearby tree, steadying herself. The mist around her slowly faded, leaving only her standing there under the moonlight. Ion could have run back home. He could have shouted for help, but instead, he found himself speaking gently to her. "You look lost," he said. "Do you need help?" Lyra seemed surprised by his kindness. She looked at him for a long moment, her star-like eyes moving calmly. Then she nodded. "Yes, I do not know this place. Everything is different from where I was." Ion hesitated. Bringing a stranger into town at night was unusual, but leaving her alone on the hill felt wrong. She didn't seem like someone who wanted trouble. She seemed fragile in a quiet way, like someone trying to understand a world she had never seen before. "You can come with me," he said finally, "at least until morning. It's not safe to stay here alone." Lyra looked around again, her eyes filling with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. "Morning," she repeated softly, testing the word like it was new to her. "Yes, I will come with you." Her footsteps were surprisingly light, almost silent. As they walked, Ion kept glancing at her. She moved with grace, her eyes constantly observing the trees, the sky, and the ground, as if everything was new to her. But she said very little. At one point, Ion tried to ask her about her home again. She smiled gently and shook her head. "Some truths must wait," she said quietly. "This world is different. I need time to understand it." Ion didn't push further. Instead, he focused on guiding her safely down the hill. When they reached the edge of town, the lights had still not returned. The darkness made everything feel deeper and quieter, but Lyra didn't seem afraid. She looked around with a calm sense of wonder. Finally, they reached Ion's small home. He opened the door and let her step inside. She walked slowly, looking at the furniture, the walls, even the simple carpet. As if everything held meaning, Ion gave her some water and a blanket, trying to make her comfortable. She sat down gently, her eyes wandering around the room like she was absorbing everything. Ion sat across from her, unsure what to say next. There was a long pause before Lyra finally spoke again. "You found me when I was alone," she said softly. "Thank you." Ion smiled slightly. "Anyone would have helped." "No," she said calmly, meeting his eyes. "Not anyone." Her words held a quiet certainty that made him wonder what she truly meant. She looked human, but she acted like someone carrying a story far bigger than she was ready to share. And even though they had just met, Ion felt that his life had just changed in a way he didn't fully understand yet. Something about Lyra, her arrival, her silence, her star-like eyes felt like the beginning of something he never imagined he would experience. And deep inside, he knew she was hiding something important, something she wasn't ready to reveal. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the window of Ion's small house. Touching the quiet room where Lyra had rested, Ion had barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind filled with questions about her, who she was, where she came from, and what she was hiding behind those calm, star-like eyes. But even deeper than curiosity, he felt a strange sense of responsibility, as if he had been chosen for something he didn't fully understand. When he stepped into the living room, he found Lyra sitting quietly near the window. Her posture was straight, her attention fixed on the sky outside. She wasn't touching anything, just observing the world with deep focus. The sunlight reflected softly in her eyes, creating an unusual shimmer that made her look like she carried a piece of the universe inside her. Ion cleared his throat. "Did you sleep?" Lyra turned slowly toward him. "I rested enough," she replied, her voice gentle but thoughtful. "This world is bright in the morning. I did not expect that." He smiled a little. "You get used to it." She didn't smile back, but her expression softened, as if she tried to understand the meaning behind his words. Ion made some tea for himself and offered her a cup of warm water. Lyra accepted it politely, holding the cup with both hands like she was studying how humans used such objects. She looked at the water, then at Ion, then back at the water. Finally, she took a small sip, as if testing the flavor and temperature. "It tastes simple," she said. Ion almost laughed. "That's a new way to describe water." For the first time since he met her, Lyra gave a faint smile. It wasn't big, but it was sincere. Like a small light inside her finally opened as the morning went on. Ion decided to take her outside for a walk, hoping it would help her understand the town better. She agreed quietly and followed him. As they walked down the street, Lyra moved with slow, careful steps. Her eyes shifted from one small thing to another: a swinging signboard, a barking dog, a kid running after a ball. Everything seemed new to her. At one point, a loud motorcycle passed by, and Lyra suddenly stopped, startled. The sound was too strong. Ion instantly turned to her. "It's okay," he said. "Just noise." She nodded, but Ion saw her hands tremble for a second. Almost immediately, the streetlights above them flickered just a short blink. Oh, nothing alarming, but enough for him to notice. He looked at the lights, then at her. "Did you see that?" Lyra lowered her eyes. "Sometimes. Things around me react. I do not always control it." Ion didn't understand what she meant, but he didn't pressure her. Instead, he continued walking beside her. She seemed grateful for his silence. A little further ahead, they passed an old man selling handmade baskets. Lyra paused, touching one gently. She traced the weaving lines with her fingers like she was reading a secret message written on them. "This is made with care." She whispered. An nodded. "Everything in this town is simple but honest." Lyra looked around again, her eyes softening. "People here live with peaceful hearts. I can feel their emotions even when they don't speak." Ion stopped walking. "You can what?" Lyra blinked once, as if realizing she said too much. "I can sense feelings sometimes. It helps me understand others." Her tone wasn't dramatic. It was calm, as if she was admitting something normal for her, but strange for humans. Ion didn't know how to respond. Every time he thought he understood her, she revealed something even more unusual. As they continued walking, they reached a small park near the edge of the town. Children were playing, birds were flying around, and a soft breeze passed through the trees. Lyra looked mesmerized. She stepped toward a tree, touching its bark gently. The leaves above them rustled softly, almost like they were responding to her. A bird landed a few feet away, staring at her with unusual calmness. Lyra raised her hand slowly, not to call it, but simply offering a gentle presence. To Ion's surprise, the bird hopped closer and then rested on her hand. It didn't seem scared at all. It almost looked like it understood her. Ion was speechless. How? How did you do that?" Lyra looked at the bird for a few seconds before letting it fly away. She turned to Ion. "Living beings communicate in ways you cannot always see. I listen, and they listen back." Her explanation was beautiful, but also mysterious. Ion had so many questions, but he held them inside. Lyra seemed fragile in her honesty, like one wrong question might make her retreat into silence again. After spending some time in the park, Ion suggested returning home. Lyra nodded, but before they left, she looked at the sky with a mix of fear and longing. "This world is different," she said quietly. "Everything is open, connected. But I feel like I am being watched." Ion felt a chill. "By who?" Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she walked away first. As they headed back to the house, Ion tried to understand her behavior. She moved gracefully, but there was heaviness in her steps, like she was carrying a secret too big for her. Inside the house again, Ion finally asked gently, "Are you hiding something from me? Something important?" Lyra looked down at her hands. "I am not hiding to hurt you," she said softly. "I just cannot share everything yet. You might not understand." Ion sighed. "You can trust me. I'm not going to judge you." Lyra met his eyes, studying him deeply. For a moment, it felt like she was reading his soul. Then she said, "Some truths change everything. If I speak too soon, you may distance yourself from me." "I do not want that." Her honesty surprised him. She wasn't cold or uncaring. She was afraid of losing the small connection they had formed. To lighten the mood, Ion offered her some food. Lyra examined everything carefully before trying it. She didn't eat much, but she seemed to learn quickly how to hold a spoon. how to taste different flavors, how to sit at a table like a human. Every small action was new to her. As the day went on, they talked more. Ion asked her about simple things, what she liked, what she found interesting. She answered carefully but kindly. "Colors in this world are calming," she said. "Your sky changes many shades, and your wind carries different scents. It is beautiful." Ion smiled. "You make it sound more special than it feels to us." Lyra looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "You live here every day. You forget the beauty you walk through." Her words stayed with him. He realized she saw the world with fresh eyes, appreciating things humans ignored. Later in the evening, as the sun began to set, Lyra stood outside the house, watching the sky turn gold. Ion stepped beside her, and they stood silently. "Do you feel safer now?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer right away. After a long pause, she said, "I feel safer with you nearby. But the world, it still feels too big, too new." Ion felt warmth in his chest. Not romantic, not dramatic. Just a quiet connection forming between two very different lives. But he also sensed the wall she still kept around herself. She was holding on to a secret. Something deep, something serious. And whatever she was concealing, it shaped her every action as stars began appearing in the sky. Lyra looked up with a distant expression, as if searching for something far away. Ion didn't say anything, but he knew one thing for sure. Lyra was not just a lost traveler. She was someone carrying a truth that could change everything. And sooner or later, that truth would come. The next few days felt different for Ion. Lyra was living under the same roof, but she seemed both close and far at the same time. She moved quietly, she spoke softly, and she often sat in silence, as if she was listening to sounds no human ear could hear. Ion tried to act normal, but every moment with her raised new questions in his mind. One morning, Ion found Lyra in the backyard sitting on the old wooden bench. She was staring at the trees, her eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't name. Something between sadness and admiration. "You're awake early," Ion said. Lyra glanced at him. "I do not need much rest," she replied calmly. "My mind stays active even when my body is still." Her words were simple, but Ion noticed something behind them, something unusual, something she didn't want to explain. Ion sat beside her. "You know, you don't have to hide everything from me." Lyra didn't answer. She looked at her hands, twisting her fingers gently, as if she was examining them. "Truth can be heavy," she whispered. "I fear your reaction to it." Ion sighed softly. "You think your truth will scare me?" She finally met his eyes. "It might change how you look at me." Her voice had a faint trembling in it, a rare crack in her calm tone. It was clear she was struggling with something deep inside, something she had carried alone for far too long. Ion wanted to ask more, but he remembered how she shut down whenever he pushed too hard. So he took a gentler approach. "Let's take a walk," he said. "Fresh air might help." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They walked down a quiet trail near the forest. The morning air was cool, and the soft rustling of leaves created a peaceful rhythm around them. Lyra walked slowly, her eyes admiring every small detail, the patterns on tree bark, the sunlight filtering through branches, the insects moving in lines on the ground. "You observe everything carefully," Ion said. "It helps me understand," she replied. "Your world is full of signals. If I miss them, I misunderstand your ways." Explanation confirmed something Ion had been sensing. Lyra wasn't just different, she was studying everything with purpose. It wasn't curiosity alone. It felt like training, like a mission. Ion's suspicion grew stronger, but he kept walking quietly beside her. After some time, they reached a small bridge over a slow-moving stream. Lyra leaned on the railing, her eyes following the water's gentle flow. She looked peaceful, but also thoughtful, as if memories were moving through her mind like the water below. "I used to watch something similar back home," she said softly. Ion's heart skipped a beat. Home? She rarely used that word. He turned to her. "What was it like, your home?" Lyra froze, her fingers tightening on the railing. It seemed she hadn't expected him to ask directly. Her breaths grew slower, as if she was choosing between truth and silence. Finally, she said it was quiet. Very quiet. Our people prefer listening over speaking. Communicate through understanding, not questions. Ion tried to hide his surprise. Sounds peaceful. It is, Lyra replied, but it can also feel cold. There are emotions our people do not express. They believe showing too much feeling creates confusion. Ion looked at her gently. But you feel a lot, Lyra. I can see it. She looked away quickly. I learned emotions only after coming here. Her words hit Ion with a mix of shock and concern. What kind of place taught people not to feel? What? And why did she leave it? Before he could ask, Lyra straightened up suddenly, her expression turning tense. She stared toward the forest, her eyes narrowing slightly. What happened? Ion asked. Something changed, she said. The air, the sound, the light. Ion heard nothing unusual. Everything felt the same to him. But Lyra's senses were sharper far beyond human limits. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply as if searching for an unseen sign. Then her shoulders relaxed a little. It's gone now, she said. Ion didn't understand what she sensed, but he could tell it troubled her. He decided to change the moment before it grew heavier. Come on, he said gently. Let's head back. The walk home was quiet. Lyra stayed lost in thought, her steps slower than usual. Ion didn't disturb her silence. He knew she was processing something important. Later in the afternoon, Ion invited his friend Saad over for tea. He didn't tell him everything. Of course, he only mentioned that a guest from far away was staying with him. Saad was friendly and talkative. Ion hoped his presence would make Lyra feel less isolated. But things didn't go as expected. When Saad arrived, Lyra greeted him politely, but the moment she shook his hand, her expression changed. It wasn't fear, it was confusion. She withdrew her hand quickly, as if she sensed something overwhelming. Saad didn't notice anything unusual. He just smiled and talked casually. But Lyra quietly stepped back, her eyes lowered, her breathing shallow. Ion pulled Saad aside for a moment. Did she say anything strange? Saad asked. No, Ion replied. But she's different. Saad shrugged. Maybe she's shy. Ion wished it was that simple. When Saad left, Ion found Lyra sitting alone on the couch, her hands clasped together tightly. Are you okay? Ion asked gently. Lyra nodded slowly. He carries strong emotions. I felt them when I touched his hand. They were loud inside me. Loud, Ion repeated. Lyra looked down. I sense feelings more intensely than humans do. Some emotions become too heavy for me. Ion sat beside her, carefully keeping a small distance to respect her space. You don't have to meet anyone if it makes you uncomfortable, said. Lyra shook her head. I want to understand your world. But sometimes, it overwhelms me. Ion felt a wave of sympathy. Life on Earth was normal for him, but for her, every simple moment was a storm of new experiences. He asked softly, Is that why you keep avoiding questions about yourself? Because everything is too heavy? Lyra lifted her eyes. Partly, she admitted, but mostly, because once you know what I am, I fear you will step away from me. Ion leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. I won't step away. Lyra held his gaze for a long moment. It looked like she wanted to believe him, but something inside her resisted. You say that now, she whispered, but people change when they face truth. She stood up and walked toward the window, her silhouette glowing softly in the evening light. Ion watched her, feeling the emotional distance grow between them, even though they were only a few steps apart. He joined her near the window. Lyra, I care about you. Even if I don't understand everything, I'm here. That won't change. Lyra turned her head slightly, her eyes reflecting the setting sun. You have a kind heart, Ion. That is why I fear losing your trust the most. Her words created a quiet ache inside him. The air in the room grew heavier, filled with unspoken thoughts. Hidden truths and emotions, neither of them fully understood yet. As night settled, Lyra stepped outside alone, standing in the yard and staring at the sky. She looked small beneath the endless stars, but powerful in a way Ion could not explain. The wind seemed to move around her, not against her. The world responded to her presence as if it recognized her, even if humans did not. Ion watched her from the doorway, wondering how someone so mysterious could also seem so fragile. He walked up to her slowly. "Do you miss your home?" he asked. Lyra didn't look at him. Every moment she whispered, "But I am afraid to return, because I have changed. And my people do not accept change easily." This was the clearest truth she had given him so far. Ion asked quietly, "Are you in danger?" Lyra shook her head. "It's not danger, but I broke a rule by being found. That rule was important to my people." Ion felt his heart tighten. "Do they know where you are?" "I do not think so," she replied. "But they will find me eventually." He didn't know what that meant, but he didn't want her to leave. "You don't have to face anything alone," he said softly. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with a deep, silent question. Then she said, "You want to help me? But you don't even know what I truly am." "Then tell me," Ion said. "Tell me when you're ready." Lyra looked away. "I am trying. But the truth waits at the edge of my words, and fear holds it back." Her confession hung in the cool night air. Ion understood something important in that moment. She wasn't hiding the truth because she didn't trust him. She was hiding it because she cared too much about his reaction. The truth was getting closer. What something closer? But something heavy, something emotional, still stood between them. And soon, that barrier. Part 4 began with a deep sense of tension surrounding both of them. Even though they had shared many moments filled with trust, care, and honest feelings, something new stood between them, something neither of them could ignore. The strange energy field that had appeared the previous night, the one the girl recognized and tried to hide, had changed the atmosphere around them. It felt like the beginning of a truth that could no longer stay hidden. The boy woke up early that morning, earlier than he usually did. There was no real reason, but his mind felt restless, almost pulled by the idea that today might bring answers. He stepped outside, breathing the cool morning air, and thought about everything he had seen recently, the faint light surrounding her hands, the way her eyes changed when she was scared, and the strange mark on her arm that was not like anything he had ever seen on a human. It was not just a mark. It looked like a symbol from somewhere far beyond Earth. He knew she was different. He had felt it from the beginning. But what he didn't know was how different, and why she had tried so hard to hide it. She came outside a little later, her steps slow and careful. Her face looked calm, but her eyes revealed that she was carrying a heavy worry. She stopped when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked at each other as if trying to understand what the other person was thinking. He finally broke the silence. His voice was soft, not accusing, not angry, just filled with honesty. "I know something is troubling you, and I know you're afraid to tell me, but I want you to know. You can trust me. Whatever it is, I won't step away." Her eyes lowered. She clasped her hands together, almost as if she was trying to hold herself steady. "You say that now," she whispered, "but you don't know what I am." Those words struck him deeply, not because they frightened him, but because they carried so much pain. It was as if she had lived her whole life expecting that anyone who discovered her truth would reject her. He immediately stepped closer, speaking gently. "Whatever you are, whoever you are, you're still the one I want to understand. I'm not afraid." She looked up at him, and for a moment he believed she might finally tell him everything. But then her gaze shifted suddenly toward the sky. Her expression changed from fragile to alert. It was like she sensed something he could not. She took a small step back, eyes searching the empty blue above their heads. He followed her look, but saw nothing. "What happened?" he asked. "There's a signal," she said slowly. "It's faint, but it's there. My instincts picked it up." "A signal? From where?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked past him and placed her hand gently on the old wooden fence beside them. The pattern on her arm, the strange glowing symbol he had seen before, dimly lit up again. It wasn't bright, but enough for him to notice. His breath caught. This was no simple birthmark. It reacted to something far away. She finally spoke again, her voice quiet. "It's from my people." His heart skipped. Even though he had suspected she wasn't from Earth, Hearing it from her lips made it real in a new way. She waited carefully, watching his reaction. But he didn't step back or hesitate. She continued, "They are searching. And if they are sending signals this close, it means they are closer than I thought." There was fear in her tone, but also something else, conflict, like she didn't know whether to be relieved or afraid. He asked softly, "Is this a good thing for you? Or a bad thing?" She took a deep breath. "I don't know yet. If they find me, they might take me back. But I don't want to disappear from this life. Not now." The simplicity of those words carried so much emotion. He felt it clearly. She didn't want to leave him. She didn't want to leave the place where she had felt safe for the first time. He gently touched her shoulder. She didn't pull away this time. "You're not alone. We'll find a way. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the warmth of his promise. It was something she had never experienced before, someone choosing to stand with her despite not knowing the full truth. When she opened her eyes again, they were bright with sincerity. "There's more you need to know," she said quietly. "More I've been hiding." It nodded. "Tell me." She walked toward the small open field behind the house, motioning him to follow. The grass swayed in the soft wind as she stood in the center. Her posture straightened, almost as if she was preparing herself for something heavy. She raised her hands, and that faint energy appeared again around her palms, soft, controlled, not harmful. It was gentle, like a quiet breath of light. He watched in awe, not fear, just awe. "This is part of who I am," she said. "My abilities aren't dangerous, but they're not normal for Earth. That's why I hid them. I didn't want to be treated as something strange." He stepped closer. "You're not strange to me. You're just you." Her lips curled into a small, grateful smile. "Back where I come from," she continued, "my abilities were considered ordinary. But here, they could attract unwanted attention. And if someone else discovered them before you did, things might have become difficult." He understood what she meant. Humans fear what they don't understand. But he didn't, not with her. She lowered her hands, letting the energy fade away. Then she looked directly at him with eyes full of seriousness. "There's something else," she said. "The mark on my arm, it's not just a symbol. It's a locator. If my people get close enough, they can track me through it. So we need to protect you," he said immediately. She shook her head. "No, I don't want to run anymore. I've been hiding for too long. If they come, I want to face them. But I don't want you to get harmed because of me," he responded without hesitation. "I'll be fine. And you won't face anything alone." For the first time, her expression softened into genuine relief. She had always feared that revealing her truth would push him away. Instead, it had brought them closer. They spent the rest of the day talking, truly talking. She shared stories from her world, describing landscapes he couldn't imagine, skies filled with colors he had never seen, and cities built with technology far beyond anything on Earth. She spoke carefully, making sure not to reveal anything harmful, but enough for him to understand that her home was real, beautiful, and very far away. He listened with full focus, fascinated, never judging. As the sun began to set, the sky turned warm shades of orange and pink. They sat side by side, the peaceful, quiet settling around them. For a long while, they didn't speak. They simply absorbed the moment, knowing that everything had changed. Then she whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Thank you for not fearing me." He turned to her with a gentle smile. "There's nothing about you to fear. The only thing that scared me was the thought that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. But now, you have. And that means everything." Her eyes shimmered, not with sadness, but with a deep, growing connection. For the first time, she felt completely seen, not as an outsider, not as a secret, but as someone who belonged. But just as the moment felt peaceful, that same faint signal she had sensed earlier pulsed again. She felt it like a quiet echo beneath her skin. She straightened slightly, her expression turning serious again. "They're getting closer," she said softly. He didn't panic. He simply reached out and held her hand. "Then we'll be ready." The day ended not in fear, but in understanding and unity. The truth was finally revealed between them, yet the biggest challenge was still on its way, and neither of them knew what tomorrow would bring. But they knew they would face it together. Part 5 began with the same feeling that had been growing the last few days. A quiet tension mixed with hope, fear, and determination. The night before had been calm, but both of them knew it was the calm that comes before something important. The girl had sensed the signal from her people again, a little stronger this time, and she knew they were getting closer. She did not know whether they came with good intentions or strict rules. She only knew one thing for certain. It was time to stop running from her past. She woke early, her mind full of thoughts. She stood by the small window, watching the soft morning light spread across the sky. She had lived on Earth long enough to grow attached to many things. The quiet mornings, the warmth of sunlight, the simple kindness she had found here, and most of all, the boy who had given her acceptance without hesitation. But now everything was leading toward a moment she could not avoid. She had to choose between hiding forever or facing the truth with courage. When the boy stepped outside, he found her standing quietly in the field behind the house. Her eyes were focused on something far away, something invisible to him but clear to her. He went to her side and she nodded softly, telling him that she sensed another signal. It was steady, like a soft pulse repeating again and again. It meant that a ship or something similar was close, enough to reach her soon. He knew her well enough by now to understand her silence. "Is it time?" he asked gently. She took a deep breath. "Yes, I can't hide anymore. I must face them and tell them what I've chosen." "And what have you chosen?" he asked, even though he already had a feeling he knew the answer. She looked at him with eyes filled with quiet strength. "I don't want to leave this world. I don't want to disappear from the life I found here, and I don't want to lose the bond we've built. If they come for me, I will tell them that this is where I want to stay." Her voice was not loud, but it carried a firm truth. She was no longer afraid of confessing her wishes. He felt a wave of relief and concern at the same time. "What if they don't understand?" he asked softly. She smiled, a gentle, brave smile. "Then I will still stand by my decision. I'm not a child. My people value honesty and independence. They will listen. Or at least I hope they do." They spent the morning quietly, but not in fear. Instead, they talked about everything that had brought them to this moment, their first meeting. The days when her secrets felt like heavy walls between them. The moments when they laughed, shared, and slowly built trust. They remembered the times when she accidentally revealed small signs of her true nature, and how he reacted without panic, without judgment. Those memories gave her strength. They showed her that even in an unfamiliar world, she could be understood. As the day continued, the air grew strangely still. Birds flew in wide circles above the trees, as if sensing the same change she felt inside her. The boy noticed how quiet she had become, but he didn't push her to speak. He simply stayed beside her, letting her know she wasn't alone. Finally, in the afternoon, she sensed something new, not just a signal, but a presence. She froze for a moment, her eyes widening slightly. "They're here," she whispered. He looked toward the sky, but again, he saw nothing unusual. "Where?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not above us, near us." They landed quietly, somewhere in the forest. "My people don't make noise when they don't want to be seen." Her voice held a mix of hope and worry. "They are coming toward us now." He felt his heart race, but he stayed steady. "What do we do?" "We wait," she said. "Running will only make them think I am afraid or hiding something." They stood together in the open field, the wind gently brushing past them. Minute after minute passed, and each second felt heavier. Then, from between the trees, 3 figures slowly walked into the open. They moved with calm steps, not rushing, not threatening. Their silhouettes were slightly different from humans, taller, with elegant shapes and smooth silver-gray clothing that blended with the light. They looked peaceful, not dangerous. The girl stepped forward, her face showing a mixture of relief and nerves. "I know them," she said softly. "They are from my world." One of the figures stepped closer and raised a hand in greeting. The gesture was graceful, familiar to her. She lifted her hand the same way, returning the sign. The boy's heart pounded, but he stayed still. He trusted her. And he trusted that these visitors would notice he meant no harm. The first figure finally spoke, using calm, clear words. "You have been missing for a long time. We followed your signal here." "Ash!" She nodded. "I left on purpose. I wasn't lost. I chose to stay on this world." The other two figures exchanged thoughtful looks, but no one interrupted her. She took a deep breath and continued. "I found peace here. I found understanding. And I do not wish to return permanently. I want to stay on Earth. This is where I feel connected." Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, but her message was clear. The figures listened with the same calmness they had shown since arriving. Her people valued clarity of mind and purpose, and she was giving them both. The first figure spoke again. "You know that staying here is your choice. But why did you not return to tell us earlier? Why hide?" She lowered her eyes. "I was afraid you would not allow me freedom. I was afraid of being taken away before I could explain myself."
Ow.
There was a long pause. The figure then asked, "Is this world safe for you?" She nodded. "Yes. Because I have someone here who stands with me. Someone who accepts me as I am." At that moment, the figures finally turned their attention to the boy. Their eyes studied him, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. He felt nervous, but he didn't step back. He simply bowed his head slightly, showing respect. The gesture surprised them, and one of them nodded gently in return. The first figure spoke to the girl again. "If this person gives you safety, and if you choose this life, then we will not take you away." The boy felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he stayed quiet, letting her speak for herself. She took one step forward. "I want to remain on Earth, but I also want peace between both of my worlds. I don't want to be a missing person to my people. I want you to know I am safe and happy."
That.
Then we will return with this message. You are free to live as you choose. And when you wish to visit our world again, you may send a signal. It was a peaceful agreement. One she had hoped for, but didn't dare expect. The girl's eyes softened, gratitude filling them. "Thank you," she whispered. The figures bowed their heads calmly. Then they turned and began walking back toward the forest, moving with the same silent grace, before they disappeared into the trees. The first figure paused and looked back one last time. "Live well," he said gently, and then they were gone. The field became quiet again, the world returning to its natural calm. The girl let out a long breath she had been holding. The boy stepped closer, his voice soft with relief. "So, you're staying?" She turned to him, her smile warm and full of peace. "Yes, I'm staying. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because this is where I want to be." He felt a deep joy settle inside him, not loud or dramatic, but meaningful. They stood together in the soft sunlight, feeling a new beginning open in front of them. For the first time, her past and her future felt balanced. She was no longer hiding, no longer running, no longer afraid. She was simply herself, free, understood, and ready to build a new life with the person who had accepted her. From the very beginning, their story did not end with uncertainty or separation. It ended with a decision made from the heart and a peaceful understanding between two different worlds. And it continued with hope, trust, and the promise of a future built together, one day at a time.